Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to a different kind of doula. Our topic today is one that is near and dear to my heart. It's ethics and the code of conduct and the work of a doula. And we are end-of-life doulas today, tackling very challenging conversations. And today I'm Colleen, and I am with Maureen and Bonnie Blatchley, who is also a member of our Gentle Passage Doula Collective. Bonnie's been so kind as to join us today and add her knowledge. She's an educator and a consultant out in the community and very well known in the long-term care world. And Maureen, of course, has her business, and we'll talk about that later. But anyway, let's get started on this interesting topic. First of all, there's two large organizations that support doulas, the International End-of-Life Doula Association, INELDA, and the National End-of-Life Alliance, and they're committed to ethical standards for trained doulas. And these encompass doulas working in private practice, hospice, hospitals, long-term care facilities, assisted living facilities, and other settings. So they are our guides, and along with the scope of practice as well. But what I will talk and what we will talk today, hopefully, will give you a better understanding of how trained doulas are held accountable for care of the dying, and also are guides to certain uncertainties that really can arise in the field. Now, it just so happens that the three of us are registered nurses. But remember, in the role of the doulas, we look at it as a non-medical, holistic type of assessing the client and working with the client in their dying days. So I just wanted to remind people of that. Even though you may look at us as nurses, we are doulas. And this is how I'm going to frame this today. So the first thing that I noticed on what do I want to say, the ethics, the INELDA, and NADA also talks about this, is commitment. And a lot of times people say, well, the end-of-life doula is there for the family, and then they add the dying person. But really, if you look very closely at these ethics and the scope of practice, we're really there for the dying person. The loved ones and the family members can be included to the extent the dying person wants them to be involved. Now, many times they are involved. I don't want it to sound that way, but sometimes there are family members who aren't. So the end-of-life doula will be the advocate, and they'll help the dying person maintain dignity in the face of their declining health. And Maureen, you were telling me a story a while back about your father and talking about maintaining dignity. I wonder if you would mind sharing that.
Oh, I would love to. So I love that you point out that really the dying person is who we are there for, first and foremost. And so I was not a doula in this role. I was a daughter. My father was dying of cancer, and he was actively dying. And I had these two cousins that stopped by. And I'd only met twice in my life. So I didn't know them. They'd come in from out of town, and then they wanted to see my dad. So they came over, but they didn't leave. And I kept telling my mom, it's time to ask them to leave. And she just couldn't do it. She didn't know how. So I was watching my dad get agitated. And so being aware that he was getting agitated as time passed, I think he enjoyed seeing them one last time for the moment, but then it lasted too long. So I had to finally step in and say, thank you so much for coming to visit my father. And we truly appreciate it. He has appreciated it. And now it's time for you to, we have to give him peace and quiet. And it's time for you to leave, essentially. And they really didn't want to. They wanted to stay. And so I had to get a little more firm, but still compassionate towards them, that because my dad's comfort and peace of mind was my main concern, not offending cousins, which I didn't offend them. I got them out of the room, but that's where we need to really be in tuned to that dying person that we are there for, and notice those little signs, like, is someone agitating them? And then in a kind, compassionate way, take care of the situation.
Yeah, that story, but that it definitely is advocacy for the client. You know, Bonnie is an educator. She's been in universities, and you know, one of the ethical standards is communication, and how we communicate accurately our training and expertise and the high standards of scholarship. You know, I'm just wondering if you have anything to say about what keeps you up to date and objective when you present information on end of life issues.
Yeah, there's a lot of challenges, I think, particularly with students and younger people who aren't experiencing death every day. And how do you have those conversations? They really struggle with starting conversations about even just what do people want at the end of their life, even while they're still healthy. And one of the kind of exercises that I have my students do over the years is to run a death over dinner event with their family members. And so, but they get really nervous about doing it because they're not sure how to open a conversation. So I encourage them to just raise a glass and in remembrance of somebody who they love and appreciate who may have died. And it doesn't have to be a family member, it can be a celebrity that they've loved their work, or it could be a friend or a friend's parents that have died. And just to raise that glass and say what they remembered about them. And that in itself starts conversation and communication about what people want, what people don't want. And those remembrances just really come back to people, and it hits them really in the reality vein, you know, of what they really need to be thinking about. So it's kind of a fun exercise to do, but it's also very challenging, and it makes that communication real so that they can go on and have those honest conversations that they need to have with their own parents or grandparents.
That's wonderful idea. That is a wonderful idea, though.
I love that idea, Bonnie, death over dinner, because you find out things in those conversations that you never would have known. We had a conversation with my kids, but I found out that my one son wants his brain donated to Boston University's concussion study. I would never have known that if we hadn't started that conversation. So it's something that, even though he's young, and he said, but if I ever die, I want you to know I want that. I've had a concussion. I want them to learn from whatever they can. How do you know those things without having those great conversations?
Yeah.
You know, one of the things with end of life doulas, when they go into the field, families really do want to know how their competence in things. And one of the things we have to remind ourselves, there is a scope of practice that Inelda has laid out, and Nada. And you can only use techniques that you have been educated on or supervised with. Now, I started thinking about this because as a nurse, I'm saying, well, I've been educated on many things, you know, like for instance, mouth care and assisting caregivers in repositioning. I've done it myself, but if I were in the doula role and there's a caregiver there, I would offer my assistance and, you know, follow that procedure. But one of the things I want to make clear is I would not give medication as a doula, and I wouldn't do wound care or anything medical. But then there's these other things like, and I really want you to, I know, are really good with advanced care planning. What is the doula's role in doing advanced care planning? Can any doula do it? Do training programs teach you how to do it? Or, you know, just your thoughts, ladies.
Do you want to take that one, Bonnie, and then I'll add in?
Okay, well, Maureen's really the expert in advanced care planning, but you really do need to have training to do advanced care planning with people. I think there's been people in the past who thought they really know how to do it, but in the doula role, if you're going to do advanced care planning, you really need to have training on it. And I think it's so important because, and it kind of goes back to this whole business of communication. That's one of the really important pieces is how do you communicate those things to people when they're trying to do an advanced directive when they're sick. You know, we hope to have people do their advanced directives while they're healthy. And that's really our goal, is to teach people to do them while they're healthy. So they're not doing it under pressure of an illness. So, but yeah, so Maureen, I know you've been teaching a lot of advanced care planning. What do
Well,
you-
I agree with you. And I think that so many doula trainings do touch on advanced care planning, uh, which is great, and to know the resources, but then to for the doula, unless you are trained, because there's certain ways to ask the questions, there's and guide the conversation, maybe seek out a resource that is more knowledgeable than you,
Mhm.
and go to them for guidance in this area.
And there's a lot of people, there's a lot of groups that do advanced care planning now
Right.
around the air, you know, in most cities, actually.
Right, right. And there,
Really
you
fun.
know, many hospitals have advanced care planning webinars or meetings. I know here in the Pacific Northwest, we have Honoring Choices Pacific Northwest, which is committed to having people get their advanced care planning, their advanced directives done. So seek out that kind of organization rather than just trying to take it on yourself, because there's a lot that goes into, you know, people think that choosing your power of attorney for healthcare, which is part of an advanced directive. Oh, it'll be my spouse, but maybe that's not the best choice, or maybe your oldest child is not the best choice. So to really go through the nuances of that is important.
Yeah, yeah. You know,
Pauline, I was thinking is
yeah.
Reiki. You know, I'm not trained in Reiki, but I think that's things
Ah,
that people might do. So, but that could be a modality that if you're trained in it, might be beneficial. What do you guys think about Reiki? But I
I
wouldn't do it because I have not been trained in Reiki.
I have been trained, and I can't believe you brought that up, because I have that down as one of the things that you have to be very cautious with. If you have not had been educated, you shouldn't be laying your hands on the client and saying, I can do Reiki. I'm second degree. I've been trained in it. I'm not a master, but I do have the second degree, and I do have the training. I have used it with people, and it is used in hospitals. There are people that have high touch energy techniques that they've gone and gotten certified in. I think those are appropriate. But just to say you do it, I'm really glad you brought that up, because that's another thing. We can't, as doulas, do things we're not trained or supervised in. Bonnie, could you think of anything else that you wanted to add?
Yeah, I would just say too, with a lot of those real specialty techniques like that, you need to make sure you ask the client if they want it too.
Oh, absolutely.
Not just
Yeah.
go in there and start performing some kind of ceremony or
Yeah.
or something like that, because you know you won't need to make sure the client agrees that that's
Yes.
what they want.
And that's extremely important. That's so important.
Always ask permission.
Always ask permission. You know, the other thing is a big thing with me, especially in nursing, and I know it's with you, is privacy and confidentiality. I mean, the client has to be assured that what is given to you as healthcare information is confidential. Now, if you're working in tandem with a hospice, of course, you're going to be working closely as a doula, I would hope, supportive and intermediary in the role, um, supportive with them, but you have to keep in mind to maintain that confidentiality with all the information shared by the dying person or the loved one, um, except if it's going to cause harm. And I was thinking about this, and I was thinking, well, what kinds of situations would that be? the first thing that comes across is suicide. If it's not death with dignity, is the person hoarding pills? This is really an ethical dilemma. But as a doula, you have to deal with that. And what if they have a gun? And what if there's a gun in the home? What else? I mean, you guys, can you think of other things? Because I was kind of, as I was reviewing these, I was thinking, well, what kinds of things would cause harm? Tons of things, I think.
Mhm.
Even family members.
Mhm. I think if there's signs of abuse,
Yes.
that has to be reported. So that would do away with privacy issues there that's what comes first and foremost after what you said, Colleen. Because, unfortunately, abuse still takes place, even at times during the active dying process.
Especially with an older adult.
Mhm.
I can see that happening. So, but I would want to kind of stress that an end of life can share only that which they have permission to share, and they should be getting informed consents as well from when appropriate, because that there can be issues over that. And the biggest thing I always tell students, do not talk about anything in Starbucks, uh, or any restaurant or any coffee shop. Do not talk about that. You can talk to another professional, but I would always let that individual and ask permission, as Bonnie pointed out. I think it's important, ask permission. Can I share this with this professional who's an expert in this area? I think that's important. So, the other big area that I saw with the ethics was conflicts of interest, and anything that really would interfere with the role of the doula becoming judgmental, for instance, because we really are the non-judgmental companion and guide for that person. But conflicts that could involve family or loved ones, social relationships, friendships. There was a story, Maureen, you were telling me about a doula who's the family wanted to garden for her.
Yes, there was someone a doula that called me and said, I know they're so persistent. They know that I'm alone, I'm single, and they want to come over because they've learned that I love to garden, but they want to come over and clean up my yard for the fall as thanks for what I've been doing. She had worked with a previous family member and then was brought in, and she said, I keep telling them no. And is that the correct response? And I said, yes, that is the correct response. Um, because even though they're doing it out of the kindness and generosity of their heart, that in my mind was a conflict of interest. Another thing, a client that I know of wanted their doula to be their healthcare power of attorney, and
Oh. Hmm.
because they trusted them. And I said, no, that is a conflict of interest, I believe, that you should not do. So there's things that you need to look at and think, would that be a conflict of interest? Am I doing the right thing? People that want to give gifts, now many people want to give us gifts as caregivers. I know you've probably run into it in the hospitals, or as a nurse, I would run into it, and we'd always have to say no, no. Um, Finally, I would just say, make a donation to your favorite organization. If you want to do something, make a donation. But the one gift that I did take, and I still cherish to this day, I was working in Fresno, California, and there's a large Hmong population, the Vietnamese Hill people. And this was back in the mid 80s. But there was a woman that her husband was in isolation, respiratory isolation, and I'd always come in and she didn't speak English. And her mask was always down under her chin, and I'd be like pulling up her mask, but she'd always be there doing little hand needlework. And he was discharged to long-term care. Back in the day, they were probably called a nursing home. But as he was being taken off our unit, he had to be wheeled off on a gurney. She came running down to me, takes my hand, stuffed something in there, and ran off as the elevator was closing. And I opened my hand, and it was this beautiful Hmong design needlework that she had been, it's a square. And I still have that today. I made it into a little pillow, but I was like, oh, that was a treasured gift. But I feel like, I mean, there was no way to say no because she ran off before I could get after her. But something like that, maybe. What do you guys think about that? If someone did something like that for a doula?
What do you think, Bonnie?
Yeah, I had a situation as a nurse too, where somebody came into the facility and dropped off this gift card, and nobody knew who they were, that dropped it off, and so they gave it to me, and I looked at it and I thought, wonder who this is from and what it's for and all that, and I couldn't find anything out, and when I checked it, it was $500.
Oh,
I thought, oh my, okay, well, so I actually talked to my boss about it, and I said, I don't know where this came from, but it was left for me, and I don't feel comfortable just
yeah.
taking this and spending it. So what we ended up doing with it was we were able to go to Costco and buy a whole bunch of snacks and stuff for the staff. So we had this great big thing for the staff. Well, lo and behold, a few days later, or no, a few months later, somebody came in and they wanted to know why I wasn't referring any of our discharges to them. And I said, well, I refer to everybody. I said, I can't make choices, but I gave you $500 gift card. And I thought, oh, you're the one who gave the gift card. So I had to sit down with the guy and explain, you can't just give us stuff like that. We can't accept it. But I didn't know who it came from. So here's how I used the money. And, I didn't go buy things for myself. It was for the staff. And, I certainly appreciate it. And you are on our list of referrals, and that's the best I could do. So I just say you have to be really, really careful.
Very careful.
You just don't know who's walking in the door like that. And, and even as a doula, this could easily happen to you.
Mhm.
Stick
Yeah,
something in your purse and you not know it.
and it's not like one of the conflicts of interest they always talk about is not to exploit your relationship with the client or the loved ones by your own personal, like say, religious beliefs, join my church, or political beliefs, or businesses, because doulas do have side businesses or other employment, and so you can't promote those. But it's not like that. I mean, from the situation you're describing, Bonnie, I mean, it was a gift.
Yeah.
So
I think,
the other,
just as simple as saying your thanks and appreciation are gift enough for me. That's truly all I ask, that makes my heart warm. It's been the biggest gift you could give me. Something like that. And that can diffuse the gift giving, because in this day and age, especially, I think everyone thinks that they have to tip for everything, or they have to do, like, acknowledge in some monetary way, and to say, no, your thanks are just the best gift you could give.
yeah, yeah. One of the other things that we've always taught, when I've taught students at the Conscious Dying Institute, is that if you cannot be objective when you meet a client, and like say you see a bias happening within yourself, let's say I've dealt with students who said, you know what, I cannot deal with anyone unless they're a Christian. And that's fine. I think that population is absolutely fine. They may have connections within other organizations and churches. However, you have to make sure you don't get yourself in a situation, where you're not, and if you do, make sure you step aside and just say, hey, you know what, I'm not a good match here, and I can find you someone else. That's why you should always know other people. But there's many reasons. Some people don't feel comfortable dealing with people who are Buddhist or Muslim, or they just don't understand the culture. Now, my whole thing is go for it, do it, learn about the culture, but that's me. That may not be someone else's comfort level. So you always have to look at that. I don't know. What do you guys think about things like that?
Yeah, I think too that, that if there's certain things that make you uncomfortable doing as a doula, it should be part of a disclosure statement so that you say those things right up front before you
Mhm.
then take that client on. That, these are the things that I can't do
Yes.
or I won't do. You can say that I can't, some other doulas may do this, but I do not. And I want to make sure that's really clear
Right.
before, because I want to make sure you are connected with the right person for you.
Yeah, and yeah, that's really important. And the other thing I just thought about is the solicitation. Doulas sometimes will use essential oils for things with permission, of course. They might go through an anointing ceremony or something, but it really solicitation of buying, let's say they have a side business with it and they try to get their client to buy it, that's a no-no,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
Yes. That's a huge no-no. I mean, you can bring the essential oils if you've asked them if they would like that, but you cannot sell it.
Yeah. Another big area that I know in nursing we always address this is sexual relationships. And of course, in the ethics and the standards, the end of life doula will not engage in sexual activities, communication, or any kinds of innuendo with a client or loved ones or a professional caregiver during the time serving the dying, even if consensual. And I have read even afterwards, they should not have any relations, say, for instance, with the loved ones or caregiver or any of that. Um, you know, people kind of laugh sometimes when you bring that up, thinking, oh yeah, but it happens. And it's happened in nursing. And it's a big conflict of interest, and it can cause a lot of tension and a lot of chaos. So I don't know where you guys are with that. But I do think it's something that definitely needs to come up in training. I'm trying to remember if it was in my training, if they talked about it at all.
Well, I think it's absolutely no. And I think that if you are in a relationship with someone, let's just say, and their family member needs doula care, I think we should step back from that also because you're too closely involved if you are in a
Exactly.
romantic or sexual relationship with someone. But as years pass and something happens, the person's gone, we never get over grieving, let's face that, but years have passed. If something happens, that's a different story then. That's in the past. And I'm going to share this. A nurse I worked in a bone marrow transplant unit. And 3 years after one of our patients had completed all of his transplant, she ran into him 3 years later. And he ended up asking her out, and she called, "Oh, I can't go out. Oh my gosh, he's my patient." I said, "He hasn't been in your patient in 3 years, and you don't even work there anymore. So he'll never be your patient again." And they've been married for 25 years.
Oh, wow.
So in that case, that was well over. So I think if it's something like that, yeah. But if it's during your time as their doula, or even after, during that period of mourning, absolutely not. That's my take on it.
Yeah, I've heard of stories like
Bonnie, do you have
I've
a
heard of
quick
those
something
stories.
to share?
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say I agree with you because it's just a real sticky wicket, and I think if it smells bad, then it probably is bad.
Is bad.
Yes, yes. Yeah.
I don't know. We have oh my goodness.
We're out of
Really?
time.
We're out of time
We're out of
already.
time.
I don't believe this.
I think we need to do
So,
Code of Ethics Part 2.
yeah, definitely.
There's still so much more to
There's a
talk
lot
about.
to it, but we did cover quite a bit today. And I want to thank you both for joining in on this interesting conversation. So join us on our Facebook page, by the way, everybody, for Challenging Conversations, and just search for Challenging Conversations and join us there and let us know if you want to discuss any topics. We are part of the Gentle Passage Doula Collective, and check out our events page on the Gentle Passage Doula Collective.com. We have a death cafe we hold every month, and we are excited to announce our new training program. And we have a webinar coming up this Saturday, and we have another one later on, not too far later, I think, and they're all listed. So if you sign up and put your name on there, we'll be in touch with you, and we'll let you know all about our new training that's coming up in January. And so everybody, till next time, take care.